Curse of the Marid, a village lost in fear. In a remote village, nestled deep within the Anatolian wilderness, there stood an abandoned house that no one dared to approach after nightfall. The villagers spoke in hushed whispers of a malevolent spirit, a Marid, bound to the cursed land. It was said that those who entered never returned, their fate sealed by forces beyond human comprehension. For generations, the house remained untouched, a festering wound on the village's past. Then came Elif, a determined journalist, eager to uncover the truth behind the legend. She had spent years investigating supernatural folklore, but nothing intrigued her more than the tales surrounding this house. Determined to prove the myths false, she gathered a small team: her cameraman Sem, her close friend Ice, and an old paranormal expert named Hassan. Together, they would enter the house and document their findings. The arrival. The four arrived at dusk. The house loomed before them, its structure barely holding together, vines crawling over its surface like veins on ancient skin. The wooden door creaked as they pushed it open, revealing a darkness so thick it seemed alive. "I don't like this," murmured Ice, clutching her coat tightly. Sem scoffed, adjusting his camera. "Relax. It's just an old house. If anything was in here, it's long gone." Hassan, the oldest among them, remained silent, his eyes scanning the shadows. "We should not be here after dark," he muttered. "We are not welcome." Ignoring the warning, Elif pressed forward. The air inside was heavy, filled with the scent of rot and something else. Something metallic. Blood. The first signs. As they explored, strange things began to happen. Doors slammed shut on their own. Whispered voices echoed from the darkness. Shadows moved where there was no light source. Ice clutched Elif's arm. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. A guttural growl reverberated through the house, making their skin crawl. Sem swung his camera toward the sound, but there was nothing there. "This isn't right," Hassan murmured, running his fingers over the walls. "There is something ancient here. Something waiting." In the main room, they discovered a dust-covered journal. As Elif flipped through its brittle pages, a particular passage caught her eye. "It watches from the dark. It whispers in my sleep. The Marid does not forgive. The Marid does not forget." Then the lights on their cameras flickered, and Ice let out a scream. A shadow had darted across the room, tall, twisted, and watching. Trapped in the nightmare. They tried to leave, but the door would not budge. The windows, once shattered, were now whole, trapping them inside. The house groaned as if breathing, and the whispers grew louder. Sem banged against the door. "This isn't possible. We just came through here." Hassan muttered a prayer under his breath. "We have trespassed. It knows we are here." A sudden scream tore through the house, and Ice was gone. Panic set in as they ran through the labyrinthine halls, calling her name. But the house had changed. The walls stretched impossibly long, doors led to nowhere, and the very air seemed to pulse with a malevolent force. Then they heard it, a sickening crunch followed by a wet, dragging sound. When they found Ice, she was hanging from the ceiling, her eyes wide in terror, her body contorted in ways no human body should be able to bend. And beneath her, a shadow slithered. The past resurfaces. Shaken, they pressed on, desperate to find a way out. They stumbled upon a hidden room where old photographs lined the walls. In each photo, the same house appeared, but with different people. Generations of villagers, their expressions frozen in horror. In the last photograph, a figure stood in the background, barely visible in the shadows. It was the Marid. Elif turned the photo over and gasped. The names of the villagers were listed, and at the bottom, in smeared ink, were 4 new names. Elif, Sem, Hassan. The ink was fresh. The ritual chamber. Hassan pulled them away, leading them down a hidden staircase into the depths of the house. The basement was lined with strange symbols, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. In the center stood a rusted iron cage, its bars twisted as if something had tried to force its way out. "This is where they tried to trap it," Hassan said, his voice hollow. "But they failed." On a nearby table lay an ancient manuscript, its pages covered in blood. Elif read aloud, "To bind the married, one must sacrifice the past. Blood of the one who remembers. Flesh of the one who calls its name." Sem's face paled. "What does that mean?" A voice slithered through the darkness, answering for them. "It means one of you must stay." A desperate bargain. The Merid emerged from the shadows, its form shifting, sometimes human, sometimes monstrous. Its eyes burned like embers, filled with ancient hatred. "You seek to bind me again," it hissed. "But you do not understand. I am not the prisoner. You are." The walls trembled, the symbols flickering as the air grew colder. The Merid extended a clawed hand. "A trade. One life for the others." Elif hesitated. She had come seeking truth, and now she had found it, at a cost too great to bear. Before she could speak, Hassan stepped forward. "Take me," he said. The Merid's grin widened, its fanged mouth stretching impossibly. "Wise. The old for the young. A fair trade." The moment the words left its lips, the room exploded with light. A wind howled through the basement and black tendrils snaked out, wrapping around Hassan's limbs. He screamed as he was lifted into the air, his body twisting, his skin cracking like dried earth. The Merid's laughter filled the chamber, echoing in their skulls as Hassan was dragged into the abyss. Then silence. The escape. Elif and Sem collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. The Merid was gone. The symbols on the walls had dimmed. The air was still. Slowly they made their way back up the stairs. The house no longer fought against them. The doors, once impenetrable, swung open effortlessly, revealing the night sky beyond. They stumbled outside, unwilling to look back. The house remained motionless, its presence looming. It did not try to stop them. Not anymore. They never spoke of that night. The footage was corrupted, showing nothing but static and whispers. But they knew the truth. The Merid was free, and it would hunger again. The aftermath. Months later, Elif began experiencing strange occurrences. Shadows in the corners of her room. Whispers in the night. Then one evening she received an envelope. Inside was an old photograph of the cursed house. At the bottom, a new name had been added. Elif. Her hands trembled. She turned the photo over and in fresh ink, one final message stared back at her. "You never escaped. No one escapes the Merid. No one is ever truly free."